Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be doing my aunt's nails from shaping and prep and all that from start to finish with gel, all gel products. Okay, and I fast forwarded this video. You'll still see everything clearly, but that way it's not a 30-something minute video. But she already washed her hands to begin with, and so what I did was put on Cuticle Softener from Sparkle & Co. I also like the Cuticle Softener, or Cuticle Remover, the Blue Cross is a good one. But I just did the Sparkle & Co. one, and I am using a metal cuticle pusher. Most of the time for like friends and stuff, I would use a orange stick for this. But because it's just my aunt, I'm using my metal one. But just pushing back all of her cuticles. And just make sure when you're doing cuticles, do not cut the skin around the finger. That's living skin and not the cuticle. If you cut it, it'll grow back. I know sometimes it looks better, but it'll grow back like flaky and dry, and you don't want that. The cuticle is just the skin that's like growing up on the nail. So just push it back and you'll be good. And this, I'd normally put it on like all 4 or 5 nails at once. So that way it kind of can work for a second, as you can see. Her cuticles were actually pretty good. I do her nails every probably 3 weeks-ish. So yeah, I push them back every time. And just make sure you push everything back. You want to make sure you focus on the invisible cuticle, because sometimes that'll cause lifting if you don't push it back really well. So take your time on pushing back cuticles and nail prep. And then I was just wiping her nails off with a paper towel to remove the product. And now that everything is pushed back, I'm just going in with my 240 grit file and shaping her nails. And her nails are naturally already rounded. She wanted to try more of like a short almond shape. I mean, as her nails grow more, they'll, be longer and it'll look nicer. But she wanted short almond, so that's kind of what I'm going for. And this can be kind of tricky because she doesn't want to take off any length. And then this is why I'm just filing a little on one side and then switching to the other side. So that way I don't make one side too angled or take off, too much from one side. And yeah, and you want to make sure that when you're shaping any shape, but especially like stiletto or almond, or anything with like a different center, so not necessarily square, but like coffin, literally any shape, you want to make sure that the center point is completely lined up with the center of the nail. I know obviously it's kind of common sense, but people are like, oh, my shape is crooked. So you can even use the edge of your file to make sure that it's centered. So my biggest shaping tip, I do have a shaping video already, but just my biggest tip for shaping is just to make sure you do a little bit on one side and then the other side, just to kind of keep things nice and even. And you could use a different file. Obviously, they have files that are pretty smooth and not very rough at all. Those also work pretty well for shaping. I like 240 grit. Sometimes I use it around my cuticles when I'm doing a dip manicure. But it just works really well for shaping. Like the higher the number of the file, the smoother the file is. So for example, if you had a 100 grit file, that would be, it's really, really coarse and would be a good file for removing product. But I'm doing just her natural nail. So the 240 grit works really well. It leaves like a really smooth edge instead of having like any snags or, funky, sharp spots. And plus with her, she's really good at finding little rough spots. Like she rubs her nails on her lip and she can feel any spot. So just heads up, the 240 grit is my favorite file for shaping. And yep, just making sure that they're as even as possible. I know it's supposed to be almond, but I'm not going very extreme with the shaping just because she's not used to it. And in my opinion, almond is one of those shapes that you kind of, need time to get used to. So for hers, it's just a short one, and I'm trying not to remove any length, just trying to give her the right shape. So they're not like a super sharp almond, they're just more almondy. I'm still filing, just taking off a little bit at a time on each side. And sometimes it's more helpful too to take the file. As you can see, I'm not necessarily going directly on the side. I'm kind of taking the file under the edge a little bit. And in my opinion, that's easier as well to get the right shape. Her thumb was already more like oval shaped versus round, so her thumb was pretty easy to file. And I don't want them super pointed. Like I said, it's not a very harsh almond or stiletto or anything. It's just a very like smooth kind of oval, I guess would be more like oval almond if that's a thing. But yeah, I think it'll look a little better once her nails grow out a little more, because then you could really get a good almond on them. But it's obviously going to take a few weeks for them to get to that length. And just making sure that the edges are nice and smooth. Okay, and now she's happy with the shape. I'm going in with a pH bond and a primer. And for pH bond or pH prep, I really like the Sparkle & Co. one. I love the Gelish one, and I really like the Dipalicious one. And for primer, I love this one by Nail Architecture. The pH bond's a dehydrator, which cleans the nail plate, and then primer helps the product adhere to your nail. And I use both on every manicure I do, for others and for myself. And you only need to apply a small amount of this product. As you can see, one dip, and I brushed off most of it in the bottle, is doing, 3 nails. So only a tiny bit of this product. You do not want to get it onto your skin. And you only apply these products to natural nail, not like artificial ones or on tips. Just to your natural nail. But do not get it on your skin, because you could, over time, develop an allergy to product if you get too much product on your skin. And now that that's done, and it dries pretty much immediately, I'm going in with a thin coat of gel base on each nail. I do really thin coats. I don't want to flood her cuticles or anything like that, so just a very thin coat of gel base. And for these, I'm using Sparkle & Co.'s gel liquids. Just make sure before painting on your base that you wipe most of the product off on the inside of the neck of the bottle, and let it drip off, because you don't want to flood your cuticles. And now that that hand is done, I am having her cure it for 30 seconds with an LED light. If I had a UV, I would do 60 seconds to 90 seconds. But I have a 48 watt LED light, which I am curing, like I said, for just 30 seconds. Okay, and then I'm going to have her switch hands, and now on to the color. And she picked a subscription color from Sparkle & Co. And for this, same thing, wipe most of the product off in the bottle, and just very thin coats, and kind of fan out your brush as you get towards the cuticle. But the good thing about gel polish is the cleanup. Gel will not dry until it's cured in a light, so there's lots of time for cleanup and all that. So if you get some on your skin, no big deal. And you don't have to use acetone. I just take a little angled brush and dipped in rubbing alcohol to go around the cuticle to make sure I get it off her skin and stuff. And with gel, make sure that you do the cleanup before you stick it in the light, because then it's kind of hard to get it off your skin once it's cured. So just take your time cleaning up the edges and all that with rubbing alcohol before you stick it in the light. And same process for the gel base. Just doing very thin coats. I'm going to end up doing, you do as many coats as you want, but I typically do 2 coats of color on her nails. Plus gel base and gel top. So she typically has 4 layers of gel on her nails. But yeah, just make sure you get all of it. Take your time painting it on. Do the fan out method so you don't get polish on her skin. And now that I'm done with this nail, I'm going to move on to the thumb. And same process. You don't want to, just be careful not to flood the cuticles, especially if you're using a very pigmented color or any reds or blacks. Some of those like to stain your skin, especially reds. So just make sure to be careful not to flood anything, and make sure you clean it up before you cure it. And then with the color, once I have the color on, I am going to have her cure it for 60 seconds. And then I've, fast forwarded this part. So I'm on my second coat of the gel, and I'm just making sure I clean up all the cuticle. And same thing, keep them pretty thin. Try not to flood the cuticle. And then fan method up to the cuticle. So it's where you put your product on towards the center of the nail, and then fan your brush out, and then push the product back towards the cuticle. And then that way you don't get that weird bump or excuse me, ridge at the cuticle line. It gives you a nice, smooth, even nail. And then cleaning up her edges again. And like I said too, don't have to use acetone to clean up gel. For soaking off, you do, obviously. But just use rubbing alcohol. And also what I was saying about thin coats, you don't want to do thick coats, and this goes for dip or gel manicures. Keep your coats very thin. If they're too thick, especially with the gel, it could cause lifting, and nobody wants that, or chipping even, and you don't want to flood your cuticle. And just be, like I said, be cautious. Gel does not dry without being cured, so take your time. It's a good product to use for like learning. It's a very easy one to do, super easy to apply. And there's so many good gels out there. Like dip powder is so big right now and popular, and I feel like a lot of people forget about gel. I don't know. And you could do gel with dip powder too. So go check out some good gels. Sparkle & Co. has really nice gel polishes. But anyway, painting on, sorry I'm kind of out of camera, but painting on the second coat, cleaning up my edges. Okay, and second coat on our last nail. Just fan brush method towards the cuticle. I'm really sorry that it's out of, view. Didn't realize it when I was doing it. And just making sure I don't have anything on her skin, and curing that for 60 seconds. And now onto our top coat. So typically I would do a coat of base gel, cure that, and then top coat. I noticed this helps with any like divots you might get in your gel or any chipping. But for whatever reason, her manicures last longer with just one coat of top coat. And I'm making sure to cap the edges as well to prevent peeling. And then once all of her nails have top coat, I'm going to cure it for 60 seconds, and then we will be done with her manicure. And you want to keep your top coat fairly thin too. You could do it a little bit thicker. Just don't flood your edges or your cuticles. And fan brush method works really well too. And sometimes I kind of swoosh the brush, if that makes sense. Like start in the middle and then kind of swoosh it forward towards the cuticle to evenly distribute the product. And same with the top coat. You can just use a brush or a Q-tip, whatever you want to use, and rubbing alcohol to remove it off the skin. You do not need acetone whatsoever. And I'm sure you saw after I prepped her nails, even with the cuticle remover, I did not have her wash her hands again. And especially with pH, prep, and primer, there's no need for it. You don't need to wash them again. You can, but she's never had lifting issues. Okay, and now that it is cured, here's the final product. Nice and shiny, new shape. good to go. And thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and let me know what you would like to see. Deuces and smooches.